welcome back to Recharge. Dr. Gene Shirock here with Dr. Corey Howe. That's you.
That's me.
Corey got some new shoes.
Noble golf shoes. They're actually really comfortable. They feel like tennis shoes.
Yeah. They're spikeless.
They are spikeless. They're so like molded rubber on the bottom.
I don't know.
About that. My last two pairs of golf shoes were all spikeless, so I guess I'm used to it at this point.
Yeah. I'm not there. Comment below. Let us know what kind of golf shoes you like. Do you care whether it's like more traditional with spikes, or are you into the spikeless life as well? We're gonna try them out this week though. So
Friday.
We'll let you know what how the Noble spikeless golf shoes work out for Corey. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can do that right now, or head over to Instagram at RechargeXFit, and we'll leave a little reel or story so you can check out on Friday how the shoes work out. But today we're going to talk about something that we've talked a good bit about. But here's the thing. We're clinicians, right? We come at things from an objective, science-based approach, but we're also golfers. So we're nut jobs just like you. And what that means, and I mean that in the best way possible, that when you want to be a better golfer, you just consume a ton of content.
Yeah. I love sitting there watching golf videos.
Yeah,
like how
to each other different things. Hey, check this out. Check this out. We both do it.
Mhm.
So chances are you're doing it as well. Like, look at your YouTube history right now. How much of that is golf stuff? But you get an abundance of it. So you start to go like, what can I do? What shouldn't I do? It's like drinking through a fire hose. What we see oftentimes, and you can watch our previous videos, we talk about this all the time, is if you want to get better at golf, play more golf. Talk to a golf pro, somebody that understands the swing and things like that. Where we come in is, what if you know, let's say you watched your 10,000th YouTube video of the day, and you're like, oh my God, I get it. I see it. I know it. I feel how to change my swing. Then you get out to either the driving range, or if you have a launch monitor and you're taking some swings and you get in your position, but your body doesn't do it. And that's what we're going to talk about today, at least one aspect of this. Let's say Corey's like, I get it. Finally, my swing, things I need to change. But those ideas and those concepts, they don't mean much if you don't have anatomical realities to back them up. And that's so critical, is that you might know what to do, but if your body is not capable and does not have the capacity to do it, that's when, one, you can't do it, and two, you cannot reproduce it. And that builds into the frustration of the golf skill as well.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you that I know to be able to dunk, I need to jump a certain way, but I physically can't do that.
Mhm.
And that's kind of an extreme example of what we're talking about. Is we want to, if we can figure out what we know you need to do, we need to be able to assess the body and see if we can get there. Even if we can't even get there, then we have some things to work on before we even get down that road.
Absolutely. So we typically look at three aspects when we're dealing with golf performance. At Recharge, when we're working with clients and members, we look at power, we look at strength, and we look at mobility. And the aspect we're going to talk about today is the mobility part of a very specific aspect of the golf swing in relation to your hip. Now, you all know, if you're watching, that hips are kind of important for golf in a lot of ways, from power and strength. But what you might not know is how absolutely important mobility is, or the ability to put your joints into certain positions during different parts of the golf swing. That's what we're going to talk about today. If you're interested, stick around, hit subscribe before we head over to talking about hip internal rotation to improve mobility in your golf swing. Let's get into it. All right, we are on the ground. If you can't tell, Corey's taking a nap here. What we're going to show you first is a simple way to assess your hip internal rotation. Now, you use internal rotation, meaning your hip turning inward in that ball and socket. So if you imagine that ball and socket joint, your hip needs to rotate in. That internal rotation is force absorption for your body, or the kinetic chain that your body goes through. So every time you walk, squat, jump, move, that internal rotation that happens absorbs all the forces, or ground reaction forces, that come from the ground and through your body. So if you can imagine a golf swing, If you take a look, we'll show you one here. As you go through the golf swing, there's a lot of internal rotation on the backswing, and then there is a little bit more forceful internal rotation that happens in your downswing. However, we're talking mobility here. There's power and strength components into your pelvis and all that, and we'll talk about that in future videos. So if you're interested, go ahead and subscribe, and you'll see that later. But today, the question we want you to think through is, what happens to your body if you don't have the mobility? This is the important piece here. This is the main takeaway. If you don't have the hip mobility, your body has to adjust around it. And if your body has to adjust around it, consistency goes out the window. You can't reproduce that movement over and over and over again. So we need to have that mobility, that capacity in your hips to internally rotate, to get you to the ranges that you need to, and to absorb forces better as you swing. So here's how we can look at this. So you can lie down on the ground, you can set up a camera or look in the mirror, lie down on your belly, bend both of your knees. Bring your knees and feet together. Keep your knees together and bring your feet apart. And then you can see the difference one to the other. Now, even though the foot is rotating out, don't let this confuse you, because the foot is rotating out, the hip is rotating in. So you want to look at the angle that they're rotating. So Corey here is rotating a little bit more on the left, a little bit less on the right. So he has a little bit less hip internal rotation on the right, which we can then take a look at his swing and see how that looks. Because he's a right-handed swinger, we're gonna look at his backswing and his loading in that backswing to see what's going on there with his internal rotation of the right hip. Now, that's an assessment. That's a very quick one to do that you can do at home. Obviously, there's a lot of ways to look at hip internal rotation that we do, but this is a quick and dirty one to see what does it look like. More importantly, as you're doing it, see how it feels. As you're doing that, what do you feel? Do you feel more pressure in the groin? Do you feel more pressure in the inner thigh or even your back? Because this translates to back pain oftentimes. So let's take a look at internal rotation lying down in your belly. And then in the next few clips, we're going to show you how to start loading that internal rotation and translate it to the golf swing so you have more mobility and just a fluid, freer feeling as you swing through. Let's take a look. While we're down here, we're going to start with a loading strategy that you can do pretty much anywhere. And this will really give you a sense of how your hip internal rotation feels. So we're fans of making it as sport specific as possible when dealing with any kind of training, but mobility in particular. But also, for mobility to be effective, you really need to be at the joint, not at the muscle. Right? Mobility is about two joints moving, or one joint, two bones moving around. So what we're going to show you first is we're going to shorten the lever, meaning that we're going to essentially use half of your leg and be as specific as possible to the hip joint. So Corey's going to demonstrate this one. You're going to start on all fours. From this all fours position, let's say you're going to start with your left leg. You're going to turn your foot out. Try to keep your knee where it is. So you're just using your knee as a hinge point. And then you're going to sit back and into that left side. Do this slowly because you might feel it deep in that groin area. So if you feel it pinchy, go into it until you feel that pinchiness and stop. Go to, not through, when dealing with discomfort or intense feeling. And you want to repeat this multiple times. So you want to give your body a good bit of repetition, 12, 15, 20, as long as it doesn't become aggravated or irritable. So repeat that 15, 20 times. You can do a little pause, break in that position. As you repeat and you keep going, try to turn your foot out a little bit more and sit back. That gives you a little bit more range of motion. That means you're actually getting more and more. So repeat that, again, 15, 20 or so times, then switch legs and go back and forth. The biggest thing before we move on to the other exercises to show you, the biggest thing with mobility, really anything, but mobility in particular, is repetition. You got to give your body a lot of repetitions to prove to it that it's okay to have those ranges of motion. So try that out, see how it feels. Leave us a comment below. Let us know if that loosened you up a little bit, freed it up, or how you felt overall. Let's move on to the next one.
So now we're going to look at the next exercise for hip internal rotation. And now we're going to use a mobility band. A lot of times when people see these bands, they think that we're actively pulling them to work a muscle. And sometimes we do that. But in this case, we're going to use it for mobility. So what I'm going to have Gene do is step a little bit away from the squat rig there to where there's some tension in the band. The band wants to pull him that way, and he's not going to let it for now. So what he's going to do is he's going to stand on his left leg, put his right leg backwards. So now we're biasing that left leg, or in this case, his lead leg. From here, he's going to let the band pull him down. Again, that's putting him into relative hip internal rotation, and then he can stand up out of that. If you feel like you need a little bit more resistance, you step a little bit further away from the band. Good. So again, we're a little less worried about how strong he can pull the band away and more about how the band is pulling him down into that hip internal rotation of his left leg.
Now, as I'm doing this, everything in the fiber of my being wants to bend my knee and squat because that takes the pressure off the hip. So I'm fighting, I'm keeping that knee straight-ish. I'm not fully locked, but straight-ish. So as I'm going in, I'm making sure I'm actually rotating and keeping my knee over my toe and making this more of a hip exercise than a squat knee exercise.
That's a good point. We don't want Gene's foot to move or to turn towards the rig because then we're losing the internal rotation of the hip. So he rotates back. Yeah, his left hip is getting nice and mobilized.
Yeah. Now I have a lot of hip mobility. I have a lot of mobility, period. And this still is challenging for me. So don't assume just because you see me going here, you might be able to get to here, and that's it. Right. So everyone's going to be slightly different. Not everyone can be a specimen like me. My hips.
And just like we talked about earlier, we need hip internal rotation in both the backswing and addressing the ball or swinging towards the ball. So then we just turn around. And now we're able to target the right leg in this instance.
And I feel it more in this leg than I did in my other one. So that's also pretty normal too, to have the difference between one leg and the other. Oh yeah, that's spicy.
So that's a good way to have a assisted or a resistance band assisted pattern into hip internal rotation.
Feel the burn. All right, one more to go. Last one here, we have a bit of a step. This is 6 inches, I believe, or 4 inches, something like that.
Yeah, 6.
Something that just gets you off the ground. So Corey's going to step. Again, you're going to use both legs. So pick a leg, any leg. Corey's going to use his left leg, and he's standing there level. And what he's going to do is maintain slight knee bend, just like we did with the band exercise. And his left leg is going to go back, and his left arm is going to go in, again, creating relative hip internal rotation. Now, he wants to bend his knee more too, right? Because he's not quite as a specimen as me with his hip mobility. But he needs to maintain slight bend only and rotate at the hip. Now, his bias is bend the knee because he has really strong quads, but his hip mobility is a little bit limited. So he's going to repeat this over and over and over again. Balance is important as well here, right? This is a soft step, so it's going to challenge balance. If you do it on something firm, balance isn't going to be much of an issue for you. So it's going to be working more on that hip mobility as he's working. Does it work other things? Absolutely. It's going to work the hip mobility of the leg that's on, and it's actually going to work your hip strength a little bit. So there you go, a little bonus. Balance. We said we're going to focus on mobility, but we sprinkled a little strength component in there as well. So while the leg that's on the step is working hip mobility, the opposite leg is working hip stability. So it's working those glute muscles to get you some of that strength as well. So this is a great one. You're not going to get quite as many repetitions as you did with the first one. So this is somewhere going to be in the 8 to 12 range. Again, repeat 3 to 4 times per leg. But this one, you start to feel a good bit of burn as well. Keep that knee only slightly bent as you do these and don't fall off. All right. Hey, hope you enjoyed that. How are your hips feeling? How's your hip feeling? Pretty good. Yeah, nice and loose. Yeah. Did you see that little shuffle? Hey, if you haven't seen that video yet, that's up there too. You can check that out of how to get some lumbopelvic dissociation. Big words, also big results. Hip internal rotation, super important. Mobility. We threw a little strength in there for you as well, and we'll do a lot more with strength and power. If you're interested in getting your performance up, you can head over to rechargexfit.com. We have some golf performance programs on our website that you can buy and do through our app, as well as if you're in the Howard County area, you can come on over to Recharge. Right? We can do custom programming, one-on-one sessions,
Sure.
all the fun things.
All of it.
All the fun things. Comment below. Let us know what you think. How are your hips feeling? One of the biggest complaints we hear very often from golfers is tight, stiff hips. That's one of the biggies. This is going to be a good entry to start chipping away at those. Chipping. Yeah, we've been doing a lot of chipping. Reproduction, right? You need to be able to reproduce your swing over and over and over. Do the same thing over and over and over again. It doesn't matter how many golf videos you watch, unless they're ours. Because we want to help your body do more so that it can do better. And that's where mobility kicks in. But there's more, probably upper back too, right?
Oh, yeah.
Should do some upper back
Yep,
stuff.
definitely. Yeah.
Upper back rotation. So let us know what you think. This is helpful. Try them out. Let us know what you think. Get on the golf course and see how it translates, as always. Subscribe below if you found this helpful or useful. We got a lot more coming for you. Check them out, and we'll catch you again in the next video from Recharge.